Hi, this is Cheryl Deemer, and welcome to my stamping classroom. Today we're going to be doing card number 4 in my series of August card classes. As you can see, this is a very simple card, but quite elegant. The uniqueness about it is the fold back flaps and also the simple stamping on the inside. As far as supplies, you will need Pretty Peacock stamping pad, and also the Christmas Gleaming stamp set. Now this may look familiar to you, and it's because it was in last year's Christmas catalog. It is found this year on page 19 of the Winter Mini Catalog, and they're bundling it just a little differently. They're offering not only the stamp set and the set of punches, but also the Specialty Designer Series paper that's all bundled together. Other supplies that you will be needing is this copper-colored ribbon, which is part of a set of ribbons called Woven Threads, and the other spool that comes with it is this mint macaron. It looks like a basket weave. Very pretty. And also you'll need some dies, and this is from the Stitched Shape dies. You'll need the smallest circle and the square. So let's get started. First of all, you'll need a piece of Designer Series paper in order to punch out the ornament. You will also need some more Designer Series paper that's cut by 1 7/8 by 2 1/2, and that is for our 4 panels in front, so you'll need 4 pieces of this. Also, you will need a scrap of copper foil paper and a scrap of Very Vanilla and a Night of Navy that's cut at 4 by 5 1/4. And then for the base of the card, this is Very Vanilla thick cardstock, and it's cut at 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2. So let's do our stamping first. There's very little stamping on this card. We'll be stamping that solid greeting on the front, and we'll be using the Pretty Peacock. Let me open that, and just make sure you, because it's a solid colored stamp, make sure you ink it up very well. Now I'm stamping this toward the bottom of the paper because I'm just going to hand cut it out. It's a pretty simple shape and it's very easy to cut out. So we've got that, and we're just going to put that to the side now in order to dry. And we will also be stamping the inside of the card. And for the inside of the card, I chose this simple holly image, which is part of the Christmas Gleaming stamp set. I'm inking that up in Pretty Peacock and stamping that in the lower right hand corner. Now I noticed I had a mark on this, so thankfully before I stamped it, I can just turn the card around and stamp on the good side, and now the front will be covered up by other cardstock and nobody will ever know that this paper had a mark on it. Okay, so our stamping is complete. Now I'm going to trim out the sentiment just using my paper snips. It's pretty easy to do. All you do is just cut, or just leave a little border around it. So it's very easy to cut out. It's a simple shape. Much easier than if you tried to use the trimmer. Okay, now once that is done, we're just going to put that to the side. And we're saving that piece of scrap because we need to cut out a stitched circle. So I'm bringing in the copper foil and the thinlits, and so I'm going to cut out the stitch circle and the stitch square. I'll be right back. Okay, I have cut those out, and here they are. So we'll just put those over to the side as well. Next, I'm going to be adding the Night of Navy cardstock, the 4 by 5 1/4, to the front of my card base. And for this, I just use a little bit of adhesive. I'm using adhesive rather than my green glue because sometimes it can show through on the lighter colored cardstocks. So I'm lining that up, pressing it down. Okay, so that's done. Next, what we'll be doing is folding over these corners on this Designer Series paper. Now, to guarantee consistent results with this, I created a template. And this is cut exactly the same size as the Designer Series paper, which is 1 7/8 by 2 1/2. I then measured down 1 1/8 inch on the right side. See, it's the same side. And I put a tick mark there. I also measured over from the bottom about 1/2 inch and put a tick mark there. And then I took it to my cutter and just cut between the tick marks. So this makes it very easy to fold back those corners. So you just line up the template with your Designer Series paper and turn over the corner. Remove the template and then burnish the fold. Okay? Now, all those folds have to go toward the center, so I'm just going to flip over my template, again, line it up, and turn over the corner, and burnish the corners. I will be doing this with the other two, but because they go on the bottom, it'll be upside down. So, here we go. Turned it upside down. And burnish. And burnish. Okay. Now we're ready to adhere this to the front of the card on the Night of Navy. So I'm lining them up to make sure that I've got the corners turned back all in the center. And now I will use my green glue to adhere these to the front of the card. I use the green glue, green liquid glue, and it's not really green glue, we call it green because the lid is green, but that gives you a little bit more time, it gives you wiggle time. So it doesn't dry immediately, and so you can actually kind of slide it over and make sure that you've got it nice and straight. Okay, and I will do that to all 4 corners, or all 4 pieces of Designer Series paper. Okay. And there it is. Very easy. Now I'm going to put the copper foil, the square, in the center of this using my green glue. And then I'm going to add the Very Vanilla stitch circle on top of this, but I will be using a dimensional. And I will put that right in the center, as such. Now I am going to punch out using one of the punches that there's a pair of punches, and I will punch out an ornament, and it doesn't really matter where it's at, and that will go in the center. But I also want to punch out the top of the ornament, so I'm just using that scrap of copper foil, and I've got the little top to it, and I will put that on with liquid glue. Again, it's just easier to slide it around and make sure that it's straight. Also, if you get too much glue, all you do is just take a little piece of paper and swipe it a little bit. And there you have it. Now, I'm going to adhere the ornament to the Very Vanilla circle using dimensionals. And I'll be using 2 dimensionals to make sure that it's good and sturdy and doesn't wobble or anything like that. Believe it or not, we're almost done with this card. So we'll put that in the center. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to add, I've already made the little bow out of that copper metallic ribbon, and I'm going to put that on with a glue dot. I like to put the glue dot down where I want the ribbon rather than put it on the ribbon. I just find I have more control that way. And there you have the ribbon on there. Now we're going to put a little bit of bling on here, and I'm using these champagne colored rhinestones, which look pink on the paper, but actually they're very coppery looking, and they match perfectly with the copper embossing on the Designer Series paper. So I'm going to put several rhinestones on there, about 4 or 5, just scattering them. There's just no real place where I'm putting them. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is put on our sentiment, and that I'm going to put on with dimensionals, and it fits just perfectly in the lower right hand corner. For this I'm using mini dimensionals because it is so small, and sometimes it's just easier to pick up the mini dimensionals using your pick tool, as I'm demonstrating here. I'm putting 3 dimensionals across. You could also use the edge of your dimensionals and put that on there too. So you just need to remove the backings, and now we can put it on. And just make sure it's straight. So I'm fiddling with it because mine wasn't straight at first. And that is the card. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make this card, and I will thank you for stopping by, and I will see you again later. Thanks.